Hello worldies and welcome back to my naughty little channel. I have been wanting to talk about this topic for a very long time, but I want to talk about one of the main factors, and I believe I've touched on this briefly before indirectly, but one of the reasons I think that obesity is so rampant in the Black community and why I think there are so many beluga whales running around out here mad and angry about the fact that like thin is in now and like skinny is no longer a bad word and all these different types of things. I definitely think that things like your body composition and like your attitudes and how you value health and leisure time and like being active or being more stagnant, like those things are a part of a subculture. So I did a whole video before talking about multiculturalism a while ago, which you can check on my channel for that. It was me speaking about how, culture is basically built around maybe a shared like nationality, maybe there's a culture, like a cult following, for a certain thing, like a part of media, like a movie, for a show, for a game or something like that, a certain fandom. Same thing with like a family. There becomes a family ideology where this is what words mean to us. This is the way that we speak. This is just like kind of our pathology as far as how, we connect things in our brain. When it comes to people who are, in the Black community, the unambiguous, dark-skinned Black women who end up having a big issue and like they have this anxiety around desirability. And if you watch the last video that I posted, I was talking about how these women, they're so male-centered that they view other women through the male gaze as well. They don't even view, like they don't even view other women through their own eyeballs, like their own female gaze eyeball. Like it's okay to be aware of the male gaze, but I think for the male gaze to be your default just goes to show that you've internalized misogyny a little bit too deep. And I really try very hard not to be too like preachy on this channel and too social justice warrior energy. But I think that that's it's something to consider, just even when you're viewing yourself in your daily life. And, these little things can really lead you down a path. And I think that when, I think so often when it comes to women, when they're centering men, they're concerned more so with how they perceived, like they're concerned more so with external validation and the perception of them by men. Like they're more concerned with how they're viewed in the male gaze than they are how they feel experiencing their life. Male-centered women will sign up for a life that feels miserable, that feels draining, that feels terrible, all because of male-centeredness, because they're not centering. They don't care about how they feel experiencing that life. They don't care, even situations where they're, maybe chasing behind the wrong person. In a situation like that, they're prioritizing more so being perceived. Because, for example, if you take a woman who's male-centered and whatever man is like the object of her desire at the time, if he's the type of man who wants to be chased by women and she's male-centered, the experience of chasing someone as a woman, I hear that men like it, and I'm not a man, so I can't attest to that. I know that as a woman, it does not like flow energetically. It's not a cohesive type of way to operate. And so the experience of that, if you were to center, your own experience of life, you would say, you know what, I'm going to feel not well doing that, chasing behind somebody. However, if you're more concerned with your, perception in the male gaze, you're going to feel as though, well, if the present male, the person that you're thinking about, is, if that's the type of behavior that they want, that's the type of dynamic that they are set up for or that they have to offer, you're more so going to be likely to give into that. And I think that it's these little decisions that stack up to an entire trajectory of your entire life, where you're going down this path of, I think that a lot of people, they get triggered when they hear things about centering men and male-centeredness, and calling it out, because I think that there are so many ways in every aspect of life that we as women are conditioned to just kind of shut our mouths a bit. We're conditioned to just kind of be agreeable. And you're more so concerned with being perceived as submissive. You're more so being concerned with being perceived as desirable or as feminine or as, nurturing, caring, whatever it is in that aspect, as opposed to centering your experience, how you're feeling in your body, how you're feeling in your mind as you're taking any sort of action. Because those are two very different types of experiences, depending on where your focus is. And I think that, I've been very concerned lately with wanting to talk more about neurodivergence and how I think it's so different and nuanced when it comes to womanhood, because I think that in our society, we do have different gendered expectations for men versus women. We have different, ways that we're socialized, and just like I said, unspoken, expectations based on your gender of what you're supposed to be good at, what you shouldn't struggle with, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to behave, when you behave a certain type of way, what it's supposed to mean, all of those different types of things, information you should already know, skills you should already have, all of those types of, assumptions that we make on people when we meet them, or the types of unspoken markers that we're holding people to. For example, it's a lot of people, it's just unacceptable, I feel, for example, when it comes to, let's say something like stinking or whatever, that's more socially acceptable for a man to stink. It's ew, he's a man, men stink, boys stink, whatever. But as a woman, that's something that it's a gendered expectation that you will not stink ever, type of thing. And I don't necessarily want to talk about that, but that's kind of an example of what I mean, where I think that these expectations that we place on each other impact the way that we even eat, the way that we want to be, we want to be pleasing to people as women oftentimes. And I feel like there's been a lot of me, and I think other women that I know, who have to experience what it feels like to maybe disappoint people. Culturally, even in a relationship sense, it can be very disappointing to people, and it can feel like a dismissal or a rejection of a bid for connection if they offer you food, for example, and you don't eat it, or if they give you advice or something about your body, your weight, your diet, fitness, anything, and you don't trust them as an authority, or if you don't do that, or that can lead to problems. We've talked on this channel before numerous times about food pushing, people who just, whether it's because they actively want to sabotage you, whether it's because culturally or relationally they feel as though they express their love through love and care through the act of maybe preparing a meal and giving it to you, or cutting up and preparing fruit, or giving you something beautiful or healthy to consume, a hot tea, paying attention to someone's drink, or just trying to meet their needs, anticipate their needs. You can go through a phase where it's I have to make such and such a little mad. I have to deal with them thinking I'm a little uppity now, or I'm a little snooty, or even people going to the extreme. You'll sit there and be snacking with a friend, a partner, a family member in the office, just snacking. And nobody will ever just start speculating and being oh, that person has a binge disorder. That person is they have an ED in that type of way when it comes to overindulgence or restriction. People only really think of restriction as an issue. People never think of overindulgence. So people never, let me finish that thought. People never think of overindulgence as an issue to look out for. And so I think that's why we normalize obesity. And when sometimes people are just being balanced, they're just not overindulging, because I think in the Black community, overindulgence is the standard, food as celebration, just it being such a big thing about, can you cook? It is your food, seasoned enough? Is it buttery enough? Is it soulful enough? Does it taste black enough? Like all of that, we're not culturally centering. We eat this because it makes our hair look like this. We eat this because it makes our skin look like this. Like even when it comes to things like hair, like culturally, some people in like poor Black American backgrounds, or even just their family ideology, what they've been taught is not much about hair care and stuff like that. Those types of beliefs and the way they shape your life, they're coming from this place of, I believe that my hair doesn't even grow in my culture. What we are constantly measuring ourselves up to is, to be Black enough, I have to eat black-eyed peas all the time. To be Black enough, I have to eat fried chicken all the time. I have to eat watermelon all the time. I have to know how to cook this. I have to know how to prepare this. I have to know about this spice. I have to have this spice in my pantry. Like, don't have your Black friends over and they go through your pantry and you don't have this and you don't have that. There's nothing wrong with having a culture or whatever and wanting to celebrate that, and even playful picking and teasing, but even stuff like that just adds to this entire ideology that we have and that we carry, where it's like, it's more so the norm to be obese. I think even when it comes to dating, I think that so often, people will talk about like happy weight in a relationship. That's another thing I think of, where I don't think it's a thing. Like, the only way I would say happy weight could be a thing is like if you maybe struggled with restriction and then you're more nourished, that could be a thing. But if you're already at a healthy weight and don't struggle with restricting yourself, and then you gain a bunch of weight just because you're in a relationship now, or just because you're dating, that means that that's not happiness. That's more so like a lack of boundaries. That's more so you focused on wanting to, you want to be perceived as somebody who's receptive, and, you want to show that you're grateful by licking your plate and getting every last calorie. Maybe you have a scarcity mindset over people giving to you. So you feel like, I can't, if I don't take home the leftovers, if I don't eat every last drop, then they're not going to want to do this for me again. Then it's going to be harder for me to get this out of them. They're going to feel as though like, well, last time I did it. And you really shouldn't have to feel like that. I think another thing is mental health. I think that plays such a big role. That's why I touched on neurodivergence, and how on my Patreon, I'm going to be talking more specifically about some things, and I'll probably do some more videos publicly as well. But, I think so many people, they put emotional regulation and mental health as like this when I get to it thing. It's like, once I get rich, then I'll finally decide to take my emotional regulation seriously. Then I'll start to take my nervous system seriously. And it's like, by then, you've never been able to make it there, because like, I will say that oftentimes when you see the people who don't care about mental health, don't care about emotional regulation, and you look at their health, those are going to be the people who are, one, they're going to be obese. And people try to make this whole like, people can be skinny and they can be unhealthy too. I would say that's not the norm, but the norm, I would say more so, is that the person already has the underlying factor that they have issues with emotional regulation and like their mental health and coping issues, or coping skills that they haven't addressed yet. And then it's manifesting in their body in another type of way. But I don't think that one is just like, the healthier one. Or no, I will say skinny. I would say being smaller is probably 9 times out of 10 healthier than being bigger. Like 9 times out of 10, that's just going to be my assumption. But I think that, even along my journey, I think there's something to be said for, if you're overeating or something like that because you're using food to cope, it could really, like, instead of you fighting and like literally wanting to eat the food, like, you could get to the root of the problem, is what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes you don't have to go to like, oh, just stop eating the food, just resist the urge, just resist the urge. If that's how things work for you, that can. But sometimes eventually getting down to the root is going to be the issue, because it's like, even if you get a surgery, even if you do it for a while, you're going to gain it back eventually. So I think it's very important to have an emotional toolkit, like a psychological toolkit, some sort of nervous system skill set that you can reach for. And I think that especially if you're the type of person who's like addicted to your phone, or you're just a regular like modern person who uses their phone all the time, the app store is going to be your friend when it comes to that. And it doesn't even have to be like, oh, this is specifically a for the betterment of my life type of thing. I think that even if you're switching from eating a bunch of food to a video game or something, I think that is still a step in the right direction as far as your coping skills, because at least, maybe you may still be procrastinating on this or that, and maybe you're taking up too much time now with video games. Maybe you're slipping into a new issue of like avoiding a problem because you're slipping into the video games, but at least you're not fat playing the video games. At least you're not obese playing them, and I think it's easier than to say like, I no longer have the urge. Like, I just think everything in life, like every day that you wake up and you're in a body that's healthy, you already feel like you have a win. Like when you are like, you just get to look in the mirror and you feel like you just look beautiful. Your hair is thriving, your skin is thriving. Like you just like what you see, your body especially. It's half the battle, because I love being able to like, that's something that I just did. I literally just ordered a bunch of clothes, and I'm so happy because I've not ordered a bunch of clothes at the same time online in a long time. And it's been largely due to, not wanting to toss out clothes that are way too big, and also feeling like, when you're bigger, you have this issue of like, it complicates everything. It's like, well, I actually don't know if that's going to fit over my fat roll. So I don't want to spend the money and the shipping and wait for it to get here and everything. And then have to oh, now I got to drive it here, or I got to fill out this paper and check this off, or call them, or whatever. Like you can tell, like, I don't even know if the returning clothes is that big of like a hassle, but I typically don't do it. Like I don't even like to order unless I know it's going to fit me. And when it's like, when you're getting down to the root problems of, issues with your mindset, as far as like, am I prioritizing being perceived as grateful and, agreeable and receptive and just kind and nice and sweet, because I feel like sometimes it is such a thing where people can be maliciously trying to push food onto you. So it is going to be important to like be okay with disappointing people. Even me, like, I don't think of myself as a food pusher, but I know that I am a person who shows care through food, like, because it's part of like my cultural backgrounds. So that is something that even me, myself, I have to think about. Like it comes more so, second nature when I'm on the receiving end of the food pushing. But when it's you, like, oh, I did this, I made this, I got this for you to show that I know you, that I care, blah, blah, blah. You have to also realize like other people have their own health goals and stuff too. Like you have to be okay with being disappointed and being the one who's disappointing people if you want to have these things that you're going to focus on and control, because you can't control other people. You can control yourself though. And I think when you center your experience in your body and in your life, it becomes easier to be like, well, this person being disappointed that I didn't eat all of the snack that they got for me, like the uncomfortable feeling that I disappointed them, that's gonna pass. But I'm gonna feel great when I hop on the scale tomorrow morning and I see XYZ, or like when I wake up and I don't have, a breakout in my T-zone or something like that, or wherever stuff pops up because you're eating junk food. I don't really know. But I think that it's really important to just decide the path that you want to be on and to really start taking your inner experience as important, because I'm a big believer that like your nervous system regulation is like one of the biggest determiners of your health. Like a lot of people, when they don't take it seriously, it's like they're not taking their depression seriously, and then they're overeating as part of their depression. And so because they think their depression is not that big of a deal, they're like, well, I'll address my depression once I get to being rich or whatever. Well, by then, think of even pretty privilege. Like it's going to be harder to get rich because it's going to be harder you'll be lazier. You won't want to get up and do stuff to go make money and go figure out where the money is on the table to go pick it up. You're not going to feel confident going out to job interviews. You're not going to, even when you go, you're not going to project confidence. Like being able to control your body, your weight, your image, that's a really big thing and a huge source of confidence, being able to curate that. Even if it's not super meticulously, like it doesn't have to be like super perfectionist, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I just think that when people, they put that energy onto themselves instead of other people, like that makes the world a better place. It's like, I don't have time to hate on the next person because I'm too busy like meticulously or even haphazardly, like trying to focus on me and focusing on, like, it's a really significant thing. Like, I don't understand why people don't, like, I think people just don't understand how important the nervous system is to their health. Things like even things like, okay, anxiety in your body, that's going to show up in your gut. And then it's like, you're going to see, like, I'm one of those people where I truly believe, like, if you were to take the average 50-year-old person who's on different medications, suffering from different ailments, I believe there's a way to take a map of the body and basically go through what they're going through. And if you had any sort of knowledge of like maybe their childhood or their different traumatic events, big life transitions, things that have been like really distressing, or their environment, what they've been exposed to, I think you can see some of those things in the body. Like, oh yeah, the place where anxiety you feel in the body, you've been dealing with a lot of anxiety, and now you have issues in that place where anxiety usually is felt in your body. Oh, that makes sense. Same things for like, oh, chronic stress or chronic fatigue or chronic worry, grief that's unprocessed, anger, all those different types of things. And it's like people, they will solving all of those problems helps you get to whatever you want. And I know it's sad that a lot of times people are in survival mode. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing today, tomorrow. So I don't have time to figure out anxiety. I don't have time to figure out neurodivergence. I don't have time to figure out autism. I don't have time to figure out, borderline, bipolar. I don't even have time to get diagnosed. And it's no shame in being in that place, because that's a real thing in the world that we live in with capitalism and whatnot. It's a real thing that people are still, they can only dream. Like some people, I think I realize that I personally take this for granted. But that I've never felt like, oh, mental health and things like that, that's something that I might get maybe one day in my 30s, once I work really hard and I feel all of these things in my body for decades. I'll eventually finally work hard enough to deserve to take the time to get the help, to get the tools or whatever. And I think that it's, I don't want to say that it's unfair, but I love to see the world developing in a way such that, we are raising the next generation where, as they're gaining more autonomy and agency over their body and their decisions, and they're gaining access to resources, because kids are able to work really as young as like 12 to 14, I think, depending on where you live. Kids can start working like over the table type of thing. And you can always work like under the table. But I think it's amazing to like be able to have this knowledge. Like, what would it look like if the next generation of kids, like imagine like all the babies, like, there's all these babies being born in the world like all the time. Imagine if all these babies that were born within the last month or whatever, like all over the world, all of them, somehow we had a way to prevent all of them from this mindset that their nervous system regulation, their emotional regulation, their healing, their grief, their trauma, whatever, is in their 30s, in their 40s, once they finally have made it type of thing that they can address. What would happen if they're not trying to adult with depression? If they're not trying to adult with undiagnosed ADHD, if they're not trying to adult with like undiagnosed like BPD, like borderline, like these personality disorders that are going on. They don't understand their attachment system yet. They don't understand. Like, that's why I'm a huge proponent. Oh my God. I'm such a big proponent of things like the MBTI test, like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and like all of the different, like the human design, I don't know as much about, but anything where you can categorize, I love it because I center my experience in my body and it helps me make sense of my inner experience. Okay, I'm anxious. Is there anything about me that helps me understand that I'm maybe prone? Am I prone to anxiety? Is that, can I at least name it? Because so many people, they have just a swirl inside. They have this big confusing swirl. That's why I really like the Inside Out movies that Disney made, or maybe Pixar, or whatever. Yeah, I think it's Pixar. But I think it's great because it really helps people. Like, that's not something that we really teach all the time. There are grown people, 30s, 40s, who don't know these things yet. And it is hindering their life. It hinders my life. If you're listening to this, if you think it doesn't hinder your life, you're wrong. Like, if you have an inability to emotionally regulate and you're struggling with your weight, I'm sure they're linked. If you have if you don't prioritize your mental health and you think it's something that's like a far off thing and you struggle with your weight, I promise you they're hand in hand. Because it's like, the things that are causing you to keep weight on, those are behaviors. There are patterns and habits. Maybe it's overeating. Maybe it's lack of planning. Maybe it's lack of grocery shopping, lack of cooking. Maybe you're having an issue with cleaning and organizing your home. Maybe you're having big emotions that you don't know how to cope with any other way. All of those other things, figuring those out, that's all the root. And prioritizing figuring out the root of all of that is going to make it so you have less urge for the behavior. A lot of people, I think, they overly focus on like just decisions, and they don't focus as much about motivation. I think that's why our legal system does classify crimes differently based on intent and motivation. And being premeditated, because that's an important factor. Is like, did you plan this out for years and years to do this to this person? Or is there a pathology going on behind it? Like, that's why they ask about mental health. Those things are real things. And I think that in your life, I don't want to say it's something that you use as a card, but I think it creates some sort of self-accountability. It allows you to categorize yourself and keep track of your patterns. Like, so many people, they don't want to hear, I have ADHD. They don't want to hear, I have autism. They don't want to hear, I have trouble emotionally regulating. Maybe it's nothing, there's no diagnosis. Maybe things are too loud on the inside. A lot of people don't want to actually name that because it forces this sort of accountability for now I figured it out. Now it's not just capitalism. Now it's not just the white man. Now it's not just, oh, we live in the West, we live in America, and they put red dye 40 and everything. Now no, it's not that. Okay, that exists, but you struggle to regulate your emotions. So you are the one who, when you're dysregulated, you're choosing then, to reach for that. But you had other options. Maybe you're the type of person who has like decision fatigue or something. Maybe even like organization and cleaning up, having a schedule for things. That changes things. Being able to understand how to budget and grocery shop and understand the order and like a daily schedule of cleaning your home and doing your dishes and prepping your fruits and vegetables and understanding what's in season when and how long it takes before this banana is going to go bad. Like, all of those different things go into the factor, because it's like, for example, if you take one person who hasn't figured out any of that stuff yet, let's take the urge of hunger, right? And put it in two different people. One person, their house is a mess. They don't really have a schedule for cleaning it. They don't have a meal prep idea. They don't really have Tupperware. They don't really even, if you ask them to name like 5 meals right now, they can't. They're not maybe super creative, or maybe they can't really think on the spot. Whatever that is, that person, when they're hungry, they're going to be much more likely to end up being overweight versus the person who, they're hungry, same urge. Their house is clean. They've meal prepped. They're emotionally regulated. It makes it easier to even be like, I am not hungry. I am stressed. I'm not hungry. I'm lonely. I'm not hungry. I'm sad. I'm not hungry for chips. I need some vitamin E. I'm not hungry. I'm thirsty. even understanding how to tell apart in your body. That's a huge thing, is understanding your own body, being able to pick up on your own cues. That's a huge thing. Like, I think that's something we take for granted is, like, if you have the capacity, there's no reason you shouldn't be trying to learn that information and maximize and master that. Because there are adults who do not know how to control urges or understand their urges. It's not even just, in a dating sense or in a this community versus that community, they can't, they don't prioritize mental health and they don't talk about feelings enough. It's to the point of this person cannot wipe themselves. This person doesn't, like, there are people who need a person there constantly with them 24/7. And it's like, if you're not somebody who has that, whatever advantages you have, you're able-bodied, you're neurotypical, or you're neurodivergent and diagnosed, or you can seek treatment, or you have a community, that's a benefit. You have family around you that feels safe, that's a benefit. You're not in poverty, that's a benefit. You live in America. I just feel like in America, like, yes, the options are there, but you in general have more freedom of choice than most people anywhere else in the world. So it's like you're choosing to eat that. Like, there are some cultures where it's like, around the world, I can imagine that you could turn down some food, and not only in the culture are you going to be seen as disrespectful, but because of the norm over there, you might actually face physical harm. You might actually get your ass whooped. Like, versus here, you're in America. Use your American privilege. No, the fuck I don't want to eat it. Like, no, the fuck I don't want to be fat. Like, you use your American privilege. Use every little part that you have, because you got to be yourself to the fullest. And I think even once you're regulated, it makes it easier to attack your goals and stuff and say, like, maybe the thing that keeps you overweight is that you're emotionally dysregulated. And so anytime somebody tries to give you information on how to improve your health, your emotional dysregulation takes over your nervous system. You go into fight and flight, or fight or flight. And then you're triggered, one, to overeat and to reject all the information and to be defiant, and then start being like, actually, I love being large. Actually, like, now you're about to start being rebellious for no reason, all because of emotional dysregulation. You're trying to prove who wrong by being 400 pounds. Who are you trying to make mad or jealous? Who are you proving a point to by doing that? Nobody. But I feel like I've ranted for a while. I was just trying to sit down and make a quick video. I hope it's not too all over the place. But I want to know what you think. So let me know down in the comments below. Do you ever notice this difference between people who feel as though, their mental health, neurodivergence, emotional regulation, they think all that stuff is like extra stuff, or like just get over it type of things, bootstrap it, snowflake stuff. But them over there, with them not taking care of it, they happen to be obese, overweight. I noticed that trend. A lot of people telling other people to get over things, or it's not that big of a deal. I'm thinking of the Beluga whale community. Everybody else is just a sensitive, light-skinned tears, right? But people are saying that while they're coping with eating food. I'd rather cope and cry. I'd rather cope and be perceived socially and stereotyped as being soft and sensitive and, a punk or whatever. I'd rather be stereotyped that way. In the body that I have, and I'm experiencing myself. So of course, what you take in on the outside is going to impact you, but it's on you to regulate and on you to create the inner experience that you want, because that inner experience is going to be what is in the driver's seat when you're making decisions for your entire life, including whether or not you want to be a beluga. So until next time, worldies, eyes on the prize.